Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of A Millennial's Guide to Real Estate Investing. Today I have 20-year-old William Brown on the podcast. How's it going, William? Thanks for coming on the show.
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, awesome. So first of all, just tell everybody a little bit about your story. You are 20 years old. I know that you've done some stuff with wholesaling and now you're moving into a whole another business. So tell everybody what got you excited or started in real estate and real estate investing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the defining moment was when I was 16. I went to one of those, get rich quick seminars with your mom, or as most people do. If you don't go with your mom, you're not going to be as cool as I am or as successful as I am. So that's my first step: is go with your mom when you're 16 and you can't even drive yet. And basically, what that did was it planted the seed of, wow, this thing is possible. You can do this. I had no idea. My entire network so far had only been telling me that college, jobs, do that, climb ladders, that was the only way to go. But inside of that, listening to that guy in the seminar, before he got to the point where he's like, if you want to learn more, you got to pay me $20,000. And my mom and I were like totally sold because those guys are great at what they do. They use all the neuro-linguistic programming, everything. And then my dad was like, we're not paying $20,000. So I was like, okay, this thing's a sham. This thing's stupid. And I basically, that was October, and I kind of let it sit for a couple months. And then the famous story is I was playing Grand Theft Auto in January of 2017, right? So I went to the seminar October 2016, and I was playing, and they just came out with an update where you can buy properties that would cash flow. And I connected the synapses in my brain, and I was like, oh my goodness, wouldn't this be so much more interesting if this wasn't fake money in a game where all you did was go around shooting people and robbing stuff, but I could actually do this in real life and I could build an actual life. Because for me, in my teens, video games was kind of like an escape. I always wanted to build, I always wanted to create. And, for me being in high school at the time, it was kind of mundane, it was kind of boring. So what real estate investing did was give me a bridge to say, not only can I, actually start to make money, but the most important part of it was I can actually start to do something that I really love doing in a virtual setting in the real world. And that's when I started to hit the podcasts and hit the books and start my real education.
Awesome. And so you were 16 years old at that point. So and my story is too, I went when I was 19 years old, and my brother dragged me and my dad and my mom to that same fucking seminar.
See,
probably.
Your mom went.
Yeah, my mom went too. But yeah, so we did that. Okay, so you went to that seminar, you played the video game, January 2017, you said, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so were you in high school at that point?
Yeah, I was in high school. And basically, the one thing I remember how I've kind of anchored that memory is I remember I would listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast. That's pretty much all there was back then. I listened to it. And they made a book recommendation at the end of each one. I wrote down the book, and Rich Dad Poor Dad probably shows up across 80% of them. And I heard it in 8 times in the first 10 podcasts. So I bought it, and I remember it because it was during Trump's inauguration. So that's the exact time. So around January 20th, I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad for the first time. And I remember it was like seeing the light where I just read a couple lines or read a couple paragraphs and just look up and just be like, wow, and probably sit with my thoughts for 10 or 15 minutes, where all these kind of notions and ideas, I was able to connect them to say, wow, this is how it's really done. Or, oh my goodness, thank goodness someone is finally writing about this. I really resonate with it. And that's why Rich Dad Poor Dad is such a powerful book.
100%.
Because it brings it to your level.
I agree. Yeah, and I always even after reading Rich Dad Poor, I grew up playing Grand Theft Auto as well, but even playing Grand Theft Auto and reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'd be like, damn, I wish I could buy houses and buy do stuff in there, and it was always super exciting for me too. All right, so you read that book, and then what'd you do next after you had that information? And because you were still in high school at this point, so you're still probably busy as hell with schoolwork. So what did you end up doing?
Yeah, so if someone's busy with schoolwork in high school, I think they're trying too hard. Honestly, guys, it doesn't matter that much. Send this podcast. It was a lot of memorization to me. I always crammed the night before, so I was like, okay, I got that. So, we got a lot of time. And I was, I think I had shin splints in track, so I could no longer run, so I had more time. So I'd come home and just listen to podcasts. And then I think it was towards the end of the spring, right? Because I was just getting started, and it's always nice to remember that, right? When you just don't know anything and things are so confusing, and it's this huge world of things that you don't know. If you're listening to this and you feel that way, it's like that for everyone when you first start, no matter what the industry or what the topic it is. Everything's hardest when you first start. So what I did was I met up with someone who was also, he had listened to Bigger Pockets. We're like, oh, let's partner. That's what you want to do. Whenever you have any common interest, definitely get into business with someone. No, don't do that. It rarely ends up well if neither of you are inexperienced or like know what you're doing. But it was motivation, and to have accountability and not being the only person in the world doing the thing, it helps. So we started going door knocking. We started putting out bandit signs. We were getting chased off yards by people. We drive to different towns around where we lived and place bandit signs. We're getting calls from the police until we realized that you really shouldn't do those. All those things, failing forward and learning at the same time, not just learning what works, but learning what doesn't work, such as use Spokio if you want one-off, Spokio.com for skip tracing rather than white pages, because white pages, you can't get a hold of anyone. Those little things like that in the very beginning. I think moreover, it was that it became more and more real. The vision became more and more clear, and it started to become, wow, this is actually possible because we're talking to sellers. That was a huge revelation. Wow, we're not calling wrong numbers or fax numbers anymore. We're actually talking to people we want to talk to. That was a huge breakthrough.
Got it. Okay. And then so you were going to high school, and then you would kind of take your bigger pockets education and then go and apply it, right? And putting up the bandit signs, stuff like that. Where were you living at this point?
I was living in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County, small town called Purcellville.
Okay.
And we would drive, I think 45. I'd go and pick up my guy Oliver, and we drive an hour to another town because everything in Nova is super expensive. But if you go west, there's a place called Winchester, and things are a little bit cheaper. So we'd go out there. The houses are a little gritty. They're not, $500,000, $600,000, 4 bedrooms. So we thought there's opportunity there. So we drive around. We were door knocking in places we probably shouldn't have been. But you don't know what you don't know. And if you go in there with just good heart and good intentions, people will treat you well.
Got it. Okay. And then what happened?
So what happened is I think we got a couple leads of people, but without having any negotiation skills, and both of us basically being super young, right? Like 17 at the time then. In addition to driving a car, my first car was a 2000 Honda Accord. That I bought from a guy off Craigslist for $700, had like 180,000 miles on it. And this is like my favorite part of my entire life, which is that we go to meet with a seller who was like the most motivated that we had. Like, he was actually like a real lead, and this was huge to us. And I had hit a deer with my car a couple weeks before, and my mom told me to go take it to the pound, but I said no. So I got my friends and we fixed it by putting like an off. If you look up like 2000 Honda Accord parts, they're cheap. So from total, it's like $150 later, new headlight, new fender, but it was off color. It was a gold Honda and a black fender. So we couldn't even park in front of the street. We figured that would blow the deal for us, not even having a car that looks like it should be on the road. So we parked around the corner and then go there, walk through. Total mess. And what happened with that deal is we just kept trying all these different angles. We kept trying all this different stuff, meeting multiple times in person. Thing needed to be flipped so bad. It was like cobwebs, not hanging, but like everywhere. It was really weird. But the guy just wouldn't sell. I think he's still trying to sell it to this date. And that was a realization that we had, is we can't just focus on one prospect, but we need to build a system to continually generate leads.
Got it. Okay. And then what did you do? Did you continue going down that path until you made some money to be able to invest the time and money into a system, or did you guys just go like straight for building a system? And then if you did, what kind of system did you guys build?
Totally. So it was a classic, and I think we had picked up another guy in high school at the time who was interested in doing this. His dad has money. He's like, look, you guys, get a deal. I'm happy to fund it. So we're like, okay, that's big, even though we don't really know what a deal looks like yet. So we kept doing this stuff. We were cold calling, and then I go off to school, and I went to school for my first and final year, 1 year at College of William and Mary in the fall then. Now, this was the fall of 2017. So basically running that, and probably pretty much like every single movie where you have a startup and then someone goes elsewhere, you kind of grow apart because you're not working on stuff and people got different priorities. Started to really tweak things. And we're like, I remember, what do we use, this direct mail provider or this direct mail provider? Because we're able to scrap between the together of us $1,500. I remember these things very clearly, because we're learning. So we realized, well, maybe that doesn't make the most sense. So we basically put it into systems like Mojo Dialer after learning more and more about podcasts, that we can make a bunch of calls. Fall semester, didn't produce any leads at all. Then the spring semester, I started going to RIAs. And I met some people that really opened the door to me to some other people. Started skipping class, helping people flip their houses or like set up security systems in their houses, because I just want to learn everything there was to learn. And now it's finally close to people that are actually doing it. What does a deal look like? How has it gone about? And then that's through the spring semester, and I pretty much drop all my other startups. The book that absolutely changed my life was The One Thing by Gary Keller. Made me drop everything, absolutely every single thing, all my involvement in clubs. I even like stopped going to most of my classes and even studying, and just went to the third floor of the library and made 3 hours of cold calls every single day, building that
Wow.
resilience.
Okay, so you're using Mojo Dialer then to
Yeah,
just make cold calls all day. But had you made any money at this point, or were
none,
just like none? So just
none.
going and seeing and learning from these investors, you just knew the money was there. You just had to put in the work to get it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Mojo Dialer keeps track of your calls. I think at that point I racked up like 10,000 calls. But here's the thing: I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it to become the very best I could at the process.
Got
And
it.
that's the biggest distinction, which is that if you're trying to focus on the end result, you're right, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But me focusing on how do I get better on every single call? How do I start writing down some of these objections I'm getting and being more clever with handling them? And then I realized calling the affluent neighborhood surrounding Williamsburg of people it's basically like a retirement community.
Yeah.
They had no interest in selling. These houses were pitch perfect. They were probably doing something wrong. Let me go back to the books. Let me
Yeah.
keep researching. All the while filling myself, reading, listening to podcasts, educating myself on books, things like that. Finish the first year of school, take all my stuff, go down to Norfolk, Virginia, which is a more, kind of gritty area. There's some nice parts, there's some not so nice parts. And I found a place that I could sleep on an air mattress for, paying no rent a month, subleasing from this guy. Cause, one of the guys I'd partnered with met at a RIA, basically said, hey, let's work together. All right. So now my high school partners, they were a couple years younger for me. They're still doing whatever they're doing up in Northern Virginia. But now I got guys that like they're actually full time focused on this, and we can really get going now. We're solely focused. I was like, I'm just gonna do this for summer. We'll see how it goes. I might go back to school or not. And basically, what happened was we started continuing to call, but we got smarter. We started getting lists from courthouses rather than calling just like high equity lists. We started calling probates, got some probates, and then basically was able to talk to that flipper who was a mentor of mine and go through, had him come on the appointment with us. He negotiated with us. He closed it to flip it, and he paid us a $5,000 fee. And that was our first deal. For the first time in a very long time, I did not have to like look at how much I was spending on groceries. I felt like the richest man in the world.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, you put in the work, like, and I want to express this because I try to make it resonate with my story too. Like I started learning. It took me 2 years to make my first money or even do my first deal, and very similar to you, which it sounds like it was a little bit less time, a year and a half almost. But like you went to that seminar, still took you even a year and a half to
Yeah.
make that first dollar, right? And you like kept trying, kept hustling, and kept pivoting. And like that's what I try to tell everybody too. Like I tried flipping houses in California, then moved to wholesaling, then moved to going in Central California, which doesn't make any sense either. And then finally I was like, all right, I have to go out of state. It's the only thing that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So, and for me too, it was like building my team out of state. I called every single property management company, and just like you've been, you were cold calling 10,000 people and continuously changing your lists and doing all that kind of stuff too, right? It takes a lot of time and a lot of trial and error to figure out what's going to work, with you and your skill set too.
And here's what's interesting about that. A lot of people, they want the recipe, right? And I'll share systems and things that I ended up using, right? It's like saying if you're a Pee Wee football team, you can't run the same plays as the NFL. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. You have to grow into those shoes. You have to learn to use that. And in that, you basically, I mean, out of all those cold calls, like people are like, well, I want to do this. I want to do this. If you don't have the resilience to rejection, I could put $1 million in direct mail behind you and you wouldn't do one deal, because no
Yep.
matter what, right? It's not a function of the money. It's not a function of the marketing. It's a function of when you're sitting there on that phone call with someone, right? And they say something and you have no idea how to respond. Do you fight or do you flight? And when you make so many calls, for just the purpose of making the calls and getting better, that gives you the strength to stay there and to fight empathetically in a way that works and brings people into the conversation. It's like, it's so fascinating to me. And I think it's pretty much in like every industry is you're always going to have people looking for the shortcut, because we as human beings, we want to drive towards pleasure and avoid pain. Rejection is pain. Until you numb yourself to rejection and you're able to detach the story that you like attach to that rejection about it meaning something like you have a really tough time in this business. You have a really tough time in life, never mind, right?
Yeah,
And that's
that's
one
for
of the
sure.
things that I love It's like the byproduct of, becoming an investor. You become a stronger individual. You become someone who can push through more, who can handle more.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the lessons learned inside of that, which is doesn't matter, no matter what really you're doing. If you're selling windows, you're selling solar, you're selling anything. The fact is, what is selling? You're saying, hey, I've got something. Do you want to buy it? Do you want to put your hard-earned money? Do you want to put whatever into my good or service?
Yeah.
And that takes a lot.
Yep.
It really does take a lot. So I've got a lot of respect for the door-to-door. I've got a lot of respect for the people that make cold calls, things like that.
Yep.
Don't do that forever because it's not very efficient, but you got to do that to start. Because like I said, I could give you perfect systems, throw $1 million into marketing this month, and you wouldn't close one deal just because you don't have the resilience.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, and it's at the end of the day, too, it's a numbers game as well. I mean, we were buying 10 houses a month, and we probably submit 50 offers every single month, and every day we're scraping the MLS. So, like, it doesn't stop either. Like, yeah, it's a numbers game too. So your chances of closing a deal if you call 10,000 is way higher than you call 10. And so, At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. All right, so first deal done. Now, what happened after that? Did you guys finally, you were like, all right, we got a system down. We're just going to keep scaling this system out? Or did now with that $5,000 you started, because you seem like a systems guy, so I don't think you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and stay on the phone call. So what did you end up doing? Did you dump money into a new system or hire people, or what did you start doing after that?
So I started talking about what I was doing. And there's a reason I say that, because there's a person in our mastermind group who said, hey, I like your aggression. I've got a marketing company. I've got an affiliate program. Let's see if we can partner. And we said, yeah, we don't really want to give up 50% of our deals. And then we finally realized, because it was like 3 weeks later, and we had both of us, right, myself and my partner, we were sitting on opposite sides of the apartment, both on the triple line dialer. I think we actually had 2 tabs open. So we're making 6 calls simultaneously, and we're still waiting for people to pick up the phone. And we realized there in that moment, like we were playing games on our phone. We were like, there's got to be something better. We realized there in the moment that if we spent all our time trying to find someone who's motivated, try and find someone who's even interested, the likelihood that we get a deal is going to be far less than if we just talk to people who are from a pool of motivated individuals. Prospecting versus marketing. We called back that guy who offered that marketing partnership. We said, let's give it a shot. And basically what happened was we went to sleep, but we said, tomorrow this marketing starts, this is ringless voicemails at this point. This guy, was using, we said, if we're sitting there and at 9:01, because the calls went out at 9, someone calls us wanting to sell their house, that would change the entire game, because then we can just scale that. We can put more money behind that. We can optimize that. And now we're spending our time at 10 times the power, because before we'd spend the entire day just to get a couple prospects. Now we can talk to 20, 30, 40, 50 prospects in a day and actually, like you're saying, the numbers game, start to make stuff work.
We went through the same challenge. So we started wholesaling in January 2020 and started with cold calling, hired Filipino VAs to cold call, right? And we were like, holy shit, he's talking to 4 people, but he's calling for 10 hours. It's like, it doesn't make any sense at all. So what we need to do instead is either, for us, we went to texting, but ringless voicemail is the same thing, where I can do 10,000 in a second. And then those people text me back or call me back. Now I just am talking to warm leads, right? So, okay, so you guys tried that, and then what happened with it, with the ringless voicemail? How did it work?
Started getting leads. Started having people call us, because we'd have them give a number back. They called back right to us. Got one guy. He was sounded like a crazy person. Left us 4 voicemails. We said, what the heck is going on with this guy? In fact, he was just fed up with his house. He moved here 6 years ago, was ready to go back to where, he came from. He did a little bit of renovations to the house. Long story short, on the deal, we looked at it. We saw, wow, we could buy this lot for 60, or we could buy this lot for 55, because we know builders are paying 60 for it. There's new construction going on.
Yeah.
Well, up there, we're like, wow, this thing is actually pretty nice. He put a new roof on it. It was painted. It's livable. Perfect for a burr. So we realized is, okay, great. How much do you want? Right? We don't even know what this thing's worth. We're still, this is our now second deal. We've analyzed each of them. He says, I just want what I paid for it. Okay, how much is that? 25. Because he basically paid 25 for it. He bought it as an REO 6 years ago. Okay, cool. We have a contract in the car. We haven't used it before. We barely know what it says. My partner and I are talking to, we stepped outside to talk. Let's see if we can go through it. And if this guy agrees to sign it, we'll tell him kind of what we're doing, and we can figure it out from there. Go through the page. You're like, yep, this sounds good. You're just saying I get my cash at the end of this, 100%. Yep. Okay, great. You guys are signing this. I don't care who buys it so long as someone gives me my money, right? Perfect. Go through it. I got to tell you, we contracted it at 25 and we assigned it at 60. However, for that, whatever, $30,000, because we ended up having to give him an additional 5,000 for like a hold, so many different complications. Basically 5,000 sent him for him to leave because he wanted to stay an extra week because he needed the funds to move. We earned every penny of that. My attorney said, look, Will, I'm glad this deal happened to you and was your first deal because everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. And now you know what to look out for. Here's a key. Figure out what your state is. Ours is this like a disperse the next day state, record and disperse, which basically means if you sign a contract, they don't get their money until the next day because they have to go to the courthouse the next day, the title company does, and record it. We didn't know this. So he storms out of it after dealing with 10 other issues. He storms out of title because he's like, you guys don't have my check from me. You're scamming me. You're trying to buy my house. But what we didn't even realize either, right? This is kind of what scares a lot of people is what do I do in this position? You ask questions. We're like, let's call our attorney and find out because he was like, why didn't I get my check at closing? And once someone's out like that and they think their trust has been broken, very, very difficult to get it back. You probably had so many scenarios, right? Even if it's like a misunderstanding, there's not necessarily malintent. It's just, we didn't know what we were doing. So we call my attorney, get the attorney to say, look, let's contact him. Let's do this. You have a contract. Everything's fine. And this guy would not hear any of it. He's like, no, you guys are scammers. It wasn't until we said, look, right. So then we get him to essentially say, okay, you're going to get the money the next day. But then our buyers say, well, he needs a week to move out. What if he trashes the place because he had a bad experience selling it? That's a real concern. You got to give people an incentive. So we said, look, we're going to give you like the $25,000. We just need to hold $5,000 back. He hung up on us, wouldn't take our calls. We had to go meet him at the property and say, look, and he was just like, he just said, go away. I'm not talking to you. So we called him back the next day and said, because right, everyone else is ready to close. The money is in the bank at this point. We're like, we can show you the money in the bank. My attorney got the bright idea by saying, look, you guys have like a $35,000 fee carved out here. If you want to get that, offer him some of that money. And we said, look, we just wanted to give you an incentive to be out on time. So what we're gonna do is give you the full amount and we'll increase the purchase price by $5,000 and hold that back. So we basically gave up $5,000 to get 30 rather than have to, he was ready to sue us. Just because again, when you don't know what you're doing, that breeds a lot of, uncertainty. It's just the people that make it, you have to go through that learning curve. No matter how many mentors you have holding your hand, you're going to run into places where you're going to stumble. You're not going to know what to say. So with us, we just stayed friendly, kept going. And I think what we did was we thought for 3 hours on what is that last phone call? How are we going to offer that $5,000? And I still have, and it's called like how to make 30,000 in 30 seconds. And it was the script of what we went through because he was kicking and screaming at the very beginning. And then we realized we want to offer you an additional 5,000. He was like, okay.
Shut him up.
And
real quick.
that was the first real deal. And then we went on to do like 89 more after that. I wouldn't say any one of them. A couple of them were easier than that. Most of them not. I've had everything happen. I've had people die in their houses a day before closing. Just like the most insane. I've had out of state siblings, fight each other. We've had properties that have like just been completely trashed the day before our buyer was going to buy it. If you can think of it, we've had it happen. Now we're not quite at 100, but it's like,
and so
some crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's what I want to get into now. So that was in summer of 2018, right? When those first couple deals started happening.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and then so in those 89 deals, is that from summer of 2018 to summer of 2019 or 2019 fiscal year?
That was from summer of 2018 to now April of 2020.
Okay, 89 deals. Okay, since the beginning.
Total.
Okay, got it. Cool.
Yep.
All right, so 89 deals. So tell us how, are you still wholesaling today, or did you turn off that whole spigot?
So what I realized, we were talking about before this call, as most people do, I was on a business mastermind with like a retreat with my mastermind in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, last March of 2018. Nope.
19.
March of 2019. Yeah, man.
Forgot what year it is, huh?
2020 is a weird year, man.
Yeah.
2020 is a weird year. So 2019, and as most people do, you start having conversations in a hot tub, and you realize that everything that you've been working towards in your life is not actually what you want to do, and what you actually want to do is move to California and start an artificial intelligence company. Common story, happens all the time. And that's exactly what we did. So basically, we drove out here in June, and we've been juggling. I've been juggling the wholesaling to bootstrap our tech company out here now.
Okay.
We're building the technology that's going to allow people to stop having to wait on hold when they call their bank or insurance company. Revolutionizing customer service, like with real, authentic tech that actually makes sense.
Okay. And were you going to college for, like, are you a developer personally, or are you just the ideas behind this kind of AI thing, or like or are you like, did you go to college to be software engineering, or tell me more about that?
So I took a coding class in high school.
Okay.
But the nice thing about language is we're speaking it right now. And I think the detriment to why having these big tech companies figured out this language thing is because if you have really smart computer programmers only, you're going to build things in a way that's not really going to make sense to the common folk.
Yep.
A way to, just to put it there. So you need a balance of both. So I've got me, my co-founder, and then we've got developers, and they're the ones actually building it, plugging in the algorithms, testing it, right? Training, optimization, all that stuff. And it's us going through conversations, taking a new approach to it. About this time last year, the manual stops. We can't Google anything we're trying to figure out to do. It's uncharted territory. Most people think that buttons and keywords are fine. It's not how it works. Organic conversation is how it happens.
And why LA? Why did you come here?
The day after that hot tub conversation, we had a flight to Los Angeles because we were coming here to volunteer at a Tony Robbins conference last year. And we're like, well, this is a pretty cool place. We had to get our dart on the board. We were in Virginia at the time, and we basically said, let's just throw the dart out there, stick it to LA. If we move up to the valley, great. LA weather was nice. We like the vibe. Cool place. It's different than Virginia. Let's start there.
Okay.
And so far, it's been great.
Yeah. All right. Great. And hopefully you were able to find some good talent too with software engineers and stuff as well.
Oh yeah, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, USC, Masters Engineering, a lot of good stuff. And now there's probably we're super excited to hire here in the next couple months too. With the unemployment, I can't imagine how many startups have failed or ran out of funding. That people are really looking to work on something that kind of is actually going to change the way things are done.
Yeah, I agree. And so are you using this wholesaling business as the cash cow that is funding this AI? Is that still happening to this day?
Yes, we have been as well, and now we're starting to generate revenue, and we're starting to make more traction and bring in strategic investors, things like that.
With the AI business?
Correct. I've completely, as of April, I still get a small chunk of the deals, of the money that is coming in from deals in our pipeline. Yeah. But I've been able to hand it off to my acquisition manager, who's been with me for over a year and a half now, and he's completely running with it as his own thing.
And then so the wholesaling business, let's talk about that then. How many deals are you guys doing a month with the wholesaling business?
So I think over the last 18 months, it's been a consistent 4 to 6. Okay. And an average of 14 to 15,000 as a fee
per deal.
Per deal, yeah.
Oh wow, awesome. Okay, cool.
And that's largely because I've never had luck buying the $10,000, $20,000 houses. Somehow it's just for some reason the mentality, they go around contracts, they're we just gotten screwed over every single time. Yeah. I want to talk to the guys that have owned the property for 40 years, they have it paid off, and they just want some convenience. Now, if you're listening to this, right, COVID, with government saying, hey, you don't have to pay rent. Some of these landlords say they're conservative or whatever. They're totally, I'm done. I'm out. I want to cash out. I don't want to do this anymore. This is stupid. Never been a more opportune time to buy properties from old and tired landlords. And that's who we've had, because the properties were in fine condition. They're just look, I'm done.
They're done. Yeah. And they just want the cash too, to be honest. We've been seeing that a lot too. So then what are you guys using for marketing right now? Were you doing texting a lot? Are you guys still doing RVMs? Ringless voicemails? Are you guys texting? And what have you guys found? How have you fine-tuned your... And then are you guys still using Mojo Dialer? Did you start a CRM? Or what's your process kind of look like now?
So the only cold calling that we've done is when I would onboard an acquisition manager at our peak when I was growing in 2019 would be we had 2 guys. I would have them cold call lists, and I would have them go door knock 100 doors. Not because I expected them to get any deal, but because I wanted to give them boot camp for getting over that rejection. They're no, that's stupid. I don't have to do it. But one of my guys, I said, go talk to 100 people. Don't just knock on 100 doors. And my guy, Tyler, who now runs it, right, he was able, like, look, this was the thing that helped me more than anything else, was he sent out there, he was wearing like khakis and a white polo shirt with our company name on it, and sweated for 3 hours. He just sweat and sweat and sweat. He's like, I'm so thankful you did that, because the very beginning I was so, I was worried and nervous, but now I feel like I can handle anything. And he took that to the phone call. Why I say that is we don't have them do cold calls. We don't, no cold calling, no mojo dialing. If I have an acquisition manager, the margins in this business are good enough that you can afford to pay people full time, and you can afford to have marketing if you really want to scale, such that they're spending. This is just the way I do it. A lot of people are very successful with VAs. I was never. I like to have people in an office. I like to have culture, things like that.
Yeah.
So we use, RVMs, text messages, dabbled in Facebook, didn't go well, dabbled with direct mail, didn't go well. So we went back to sticking with what we know, texting and RVMs.
Got it. Have you
in a TCPA compliant way?
Yeah, us too. Have you guys did this AI business ever think about bringing it into the wholesaling business, meaning the text messages actually replying, like creating an AI bot to actually reply to the text message, and then you could scale it to the moon? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, how we're going to do that is that's literally where we want to scale to. I've space travel goals, and I'm not going to get there stacking single family assignment fees, right? Literally to the moon. Where we're going to go is, like, think Airbnb, think Lead Sherpa, be able to license our proprietary tech to them that then they can offer to everyone else. It'd be wasted on our own business. So I'm not really involved in the wholesaling anymore. My partner, he's just completely running it and just funding it in part.
Yeah.
However, when we come back to it, 100% Lead Sherpa, if you're listening to this, we'll be calling you here shortly, because the ability to have natural and free-flowing conversations at scale is the middle ground between well-trained personal assistants or terrible decision tree chatbot.
Yeah.
And it's going to work very, very well.
Love it. Awesome. Great. Well, good luck to you. Congrats on moving to LA. Congrats on all your success thus far. It's been great talking to you and learning from you. And what's the best way that people can get in touch with you? Is there any website or any way that people can get in touch if they want to reach out to you or learn more about how you've done it at such a young age?
Yeah, for sure. I respond to all my Instagram DMs. I just have one condition, is if you're going to ask me how to get started, I'm going to tell you to go door knock 100 doors. So just know that's coming. But it's will.jbrown. That's WILL.jbrown, as it's commonly spelled. And then a site if you guys want to go to, and I stuck a little link up there in the top right as like a blue button. If you want to learn more about our technology that we're building, you can join the newsletter. It's arestech.ai. That's ARESTECH.ai. And I also put a button there for some resources and like some discount codes to the text message and RVM stuff that we've been using, just because I want to help you guys all out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing all your knowledge with us today.
It's been a blast. Talk to you later.